Welcome everybody on this square table of Isaka, Netherlands. We are hosting this name of Isaka, but also Norea is sponsoring this event. Today we will have the session about managing business value of IT. I take you through the house rules. Make sure you appear on MS Teams with the same name as you registered for acquiring CPE points. The presentation will be recorded along with the slides and will be released after the session. During the session, please mute your microphone and stop sharing your video camera. In case of questions, we can change that. If you have questions, please use the raise hand feature or type in the chat box. I will be moderating, and our speaker is able to answer questions whenever they are coming up. And then our speaker today is Amir Jamil. We are very happy to have him. He's calling in from London today. Welcome, Amir, and he will introduce himself more thoroughly in the start of the presentation. And then, looking forward already to next week. It will be on June 9, and the title will then be Algorithm Oversight, how the IT auditor can help to prevent new incidents from happening. We are hoping you will join again at next week. Then I will switch off my presentation and we will switch over to Amir. Amir, can you start?
Yep. Thank you. I'm just starting the presentation.
Okay, we see the presentation, Amir. Yep. You can start the show. You can start the presentation mode. Yes, sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I welcome you all to our today's webinar on managing business value of IT. My name is Amir Jamil, and I am director at GRC Simplified Limited UK. GRC Simplified is a specialist cybersecurity and IT governance consultancy firm. For the past 15 years, I have been helping businesses realize technology benefits and working exclusively with C-suite executives, improving business value of IT. And today I'm sharing with you my experience I gained in my interactions with board and executive management while implementing IT governance framework using COBIT framework. I have used COBIT 4.1, COBIT 5, and now today I am using COBIT 2019 version. So now, the topic today is about managing business value of IT. So why is it important to measure IT value? Well, all eyes are on IT investments today. IT consumes significant resources relative to other functions because of the cost to operate and manage the IT infrastructure and the ubiquity of IT throughout most modern organizations. Even if business minimize their IT supported innovation, which is a very risky strategy, there are ongoing costs for network systems, applications, and a highly skilled workforce. So at a time when budgets are being continually squeezed, there are more pressure than ever to demonstrate the business value of IT. And the question, the executive management and the business side usually ask questions like, how do you know if you are getting value from money from your IT investments? And how can we maximize the likelihood of success in IT investment choices? Then how can you tell if you need to make as much investment in IT as you are making now? So these are some of the questions which basically relates to business value of IT or value delivery, and we will focus on tailoring governance system or governance solution to answer these questions. I have put my experience from multiple board and executive committee engagements over the last several years, and that will help enterprise manage and investments in IT and realize business value of IT. So today, the presentation is divided into two agenda items. First, we will spend some time on understanding the value, what value actually is, and then we will talk about managing business value of IT. I will share with you a lean governance system that I have developed to basically ensure managing business value of IT. So let's start with understanding the value. So according to the dictionary, the literal meaning of value is the monetary worth of something, or a fair return or equivalent in goods, services, or money for something exchanged. Then relative worth, utility, or importance. So these are the key words: the monetary worth, return or equivalent, relative worth, and intrinsically valuable or desirable, something which is desirable. Okay. So now the nature of value is like it relies on expectations of stakeholders. So when we establish IT governance system, it is more important to understand the expectations of the stakeholder. That is why, and that is how basically we will be able to deliver value to the stakeholders. Okay. And when we talk about stakeholders, there are a number of stakeholders, and sometimes their expectations are competing each other or conflicting with each other. So that's why it is very important. If you want to deliver value to the stakeholders, you need to understand their expectations at the initial stage. And if there is any conflict, you need to resolve that conflict. Otherwise, you will not be able to deliver value to the stakeholders. And then the another element when we talk about value delivery is the resources used to meet the expectations. So we have stakeholder expectations, and when you resolve those expectations, the second important element is like what resources you are using to meet those expectations. Then it differs for commercial enterprises. For example, commercial enterprises have a very clear objectives like increase in profit, decrease in cost. And if you are talking about public sector organizations, their objectives are totally different. They achieve public policy outcomes. Okay. So it is very important to understand like in what context we are talking about value delivery to the stakeholders, and we need to understand like what are their objectives. Therefore, value is basically complex, it is context specific, and very dynamic because of one thing majorly: expectations of stakeholders keep on changing with time. So it is not that you have discussed or identified stakeholder expectations, and you have agreed on those expectations, and now you will start and keep on delivering those expectations. No, it will not be the same, because the expectations will keep on changing over a period of time, and there are so many factors, internal to the organization and external factors, which will basically force changes in the expectations as well. Okay. So now, from IT governance context, that's how COVID define the value delivery. Like the governance objective, the main objective of governance is value creation. So we have stakeholder needs which drive basically governance system, and under the governance objective, we have benefit realization, three components: benefit realization, risk optimization, and resource optimization. So we may be delivering value, but if the benefits are not realized, that is the problem. Okay. So you may be optimizing your risk, you may be optimizing your resources, and you may be meeting stakeholder expectations, but since the benefits are not realized, okay, we will talk about it, how we make sure that benefits are realized throughout our presentation. So now, the board and executive management are interested to know Like, are we managing our investments in IT and getting optimal value at an affordable cost with an acceptable level of risk? So these are the three parameters on which usually the value proposition is evaluated. So now CIOs are being asked to justify the need for investment in security programs and resources. And business executives review proposed business cases for security investments and commonly ask questions like, I see what I'm being asked to pay, but what value I will get. Okay. And in response, usually CIOs usually complain, I would say, that IT executive, like, the business case I built was comprehensive and sensible, but the business executives did not see the value. Now, most CIOs fail to understand that board members take an overarching and strategic vantage point to ensure the long term prosperity and survivability of the enterprise. Okay. Now, if the business case you are presenting to the board or to the executive management for investment in any particular aspect of technology, and you are not mapping it to the business requirement, because business management have their own business strategy, they have defined their objectives. Okay. And they want to see like how investing in IT will enable them in achieving their business objectives. So if in your business case this link is missing, and you are assuming that they will figure it out by themselves, that how it will help them achieve their business objectives, that is a mistake, and they will never be able to figure it out because they are not technical people. Okay. So gaining attention and being relevant to the board requires placing technology investment proposals in the context of business objectives. So there are so many examples I can give you. Like, I have a first-hand experience, like where I have seen business cases that have been developed. Those business cases cover every technical aspect, but they fail to basically map it to the business requirements. Now, for example, it could be anything, like, for example, investment in upgrading the operating system across the organization, or investing in acquiring some tool. For example, information security and cyber security these days is very hot topic, and most of the organizations or CISOs are basically targeting or basically relying on implementing or acquiring SIEM solution or services. Yeah, so that is a huge and heavy investment. But how does it help business to achieve their objectives? That you need to figure out, and you need to explain in your business case to the business side, business management, so that they can understand what value will they be expecting from this investment. Okay. And sometimes when investments are not aligned, so this could happen. Okay. And I have seen this situation several times. Now, investment decisions need to be based on facts rather than politics, emotions, or guesswork. Clarity on the degree of strategic alignment, like whatever you are proposing, how it is supporting them in achieving their business objectives, how strategically it is aligned with their business, the expected tangible and intangible business value. Okay. And then the level of risk incurred, how much risk you are going to incur in this initiative or acquisition or whatever it is. Then we have the process. We need to understand the process itself, like how value is created. So IT governance is about uh, delivering value to the stakeholders. Okay, and in this process, IT strategy drives IT processes which obtain resource necessary. So if I use the pointer here, where is my pointer? Yeah. So you see, we have stakeholder needs which drive strategy, okay, which drives business strategy, and of course IT strategy. So IT strategy should be aligned with the business strategy. Then strategy basically directs processes. So you need to implement or define processes to implement the strategy. Then processes basically use resources. Okay. Then processes report results, and these results are used to improve the processes or to confirm or change the strategy, the direction, strategic direction that you have defined for yourself. So that's how the complete value creation process works. Okay. And using this process, what elements should be part of our governance system or governance solution? That's what we are talking about now. So when we talk about implementing IT governance or defining a tailored governance system for any organization, there is no classical approach to establish IT governance. Okay. There could be many starting points, and one of them is using like goals cascade to launch IT governance initiative, and this makes it possible to relate to business case to resolve stakeholder issues and thereby improve management buy-in. And based on my experience, I am sharing a lean approach for designing and establishing an IT governance system focused on managing business value of IT. Okay. So now this approach covers the economic life cycle of IT investment and provides immediate value to the stakeholders and is practical to the practitioners in the field. So we have five elements. Number one, agree on strategic goals. Okay. And it relates to understanding stakeholder requirements. So when we talk about agree on strategic goals, that means you are agreeing, you are identifying stakeholder expectations, and you are agreeing on like what you can fulfill from IT's platform and what you cannot do at this stage. Then we have control IT investment. So whatever you have agreed, when you are strategically aligned, you need to control IT investment because there may be so many initiatives in pipeline, and you need to control where you should invest and what are the initiatives or areas where you will achieve value or return on investment. Okay. Then we need to ensure project results. So when you initiate any project, you need to ensure that results are achieved. And there is another aspect, like from project management perspective, a project is successful if you have delivered the scope within budget, within time. These are the three parameters that are used usually to evaluate the project. That is why we have seen there are so many examples or case studies where the project from the project management perspective have been declared as a successful project, but it failed to meet the expectations of the stakeholder. That is why it does not deliver any value to the business. So that is why it is categorized from the business perspective or from the value perspective. Those projects are usually categorized as failed initiatives from IT perspective. Okay. So we need to make sure that project results are delivered with value. Then we need to manage IT services because projects does not deliver value. Actually, it is the services that deliver the value. And then, of course, report IT performance. This is the part where we make sure that benefits are realized. If we are not reporting the achievements, the performance, the benefits will never be realized by itself. Okay. So now let's get into the detail of these five steps. How do we establish a governance system? And it basically, these five steps, it covers the economic life cycle of IT investment, starting from meeting expectations or strategic alignment till reporting throughout. And this cycle goes on based on the reports I have, as I have shown you in the previous slide, the value creation process. Like based on the reports, your strategy may be changed, your strategic goals may be changed. Based on that, your investments will be reallocated, then projects will be initiated or terminated in the middle if like uh, it becomes obvious that this particular project is not going to deliver value. So it's better to terminate the project in the middle, rather keep on investing in the project, and at the end you come to realize that okay, since our objectives have been changed, business objectives have been changed, this project has not delivered any value. Okay. Now, when we talk about agree on a strategic goal, by the way, if you have any question, you can ask throughout the presentation. Okay. I may not be able to see your chat window or hand raise, but our moderator is basically keeping an eye on any question if you want to ask anything during the presentation. So, value creation starts with IT alignment. The business and IT alignment starts with the clear understanding and agreement on strategic goals. IT strategic planning is required to direct and manage all IT services in line with the business strategy and priorities. So, IT strategy must define strategies and tactics to deliver IT services in a transparent and effective manner. Okay. And it is very important because you have and to basically define your strategies or tactics, you need to basically identify where you are right now, what are where you want to be, and what are the gaps and what are the constraints, because without identifying the constraints that are limiting you to achieve your desired state, okay, you will never be able to document the IT strategy or any strategy, in fact. So a strategy is all about identifying the constraints, okay, that are in your way, from moving from current state to the desired state, okay, and how you overcome those constraints. So that should be documented in your IT strategy. Then provide a clear understanding of IT opportunities and limitations for key stakeholders. So you need to basically involve the key stakeholders and keep them posted, keep them informed, like what are the opportunities, what are the limitations. Okay. Then assess current capability and resource requirements and clarify the level of investments required. So it will be the management decision, like where they want to invest and where they do not want to invest. So these are the highlights of elements that should be incorporated in your IT strategy. And when we talk about establishing this practice, so COVID has provided a guidance, clear guidance to us.
Amir,
Yep.
I have a question.
Mhm.
In the boardroom, sometimes I hear from IT management that the board should um, make steps towards understanding IT better.
Mhm.
And from board members, you often hear, okay, make it an easy explanation. So IT should uh, move with explanations more towards, say, people not understanding IT so much.
Mhm.
Which of the two, in your experience, is true, or is it somewhere in between?
Actually, you see, like um, one thing is very clear that the people sitting at the board are not technical people. Okay, they do not understand technology. Yes, they understand business because they have been like the other element. What are the okay? Let's put this question in a different context. Like, what are the areas of business functions in which usually the executive management and the board members are very well versed, or they understand it very clearly? Financial management, they know it by heart, okay, because they have been doing it for the long time, okay. The practices that have been defined to manage finances for the organization have been matured now, okay. It is not the area which is evolving these days, okay. Technology is still evolving, and it is only last 50 years maximum, I believe, since we have started introducing technology gradually, slowly and gradually into the business environment. And that is why the people sitting in the board, they do not understand technology. And since like if we consider the pace with which the technology is changing these days, we cannot transfer this responsibility to the board members, okay. When they are sitting at the board, yes, they are accountable to basically make sure that to deliver their responsibilities and accountabilities, okay. And since their businesses are now heavily relying on technology, they are basically looking towards the technical people to explain how best technology can be adopted to satisfy their business objectives. So now in this situation, it is basically CIOs or head of IT or technical person's responsibility to explain, because this person, whether you call it CIO or head of IT, sometimes I have seen like organizations have hired consultants to basically support IT steering committees on different IT related decisions. So this is basically a bridge between IT and the business. Okay, so that is why we say that CIO needs to understand the business as well as technology. And when the CIO talks to the executive management, the CIO basically advocate or provide an insight into the technical capabilities of the organization. When CIO talks to the technical people within their organization, to the IT department, CIO basically explains what business expects from IT department. Okay, so we cannot say that board should understand, where board members should learn technology and then make informed decisions. This responsibility remains with the CIO or the technical people to understand the business and to basically mediate between the technical department and a business function. And for this purpose, COVID has provided us a very good resource, which is non-technical, which is written in plain English. Okay, and it has provided us an approach, the approach that I am sharing with you today. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. It was very clear answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So we were talking about strategic alignment. So this is the guidance that we have available in COVID 2019. The management objective is APO02, manage strategy. So this management objective, like for the people who are basically familiar with COVID 5 terminologies, we used to call it process in COVID 5, and in COVID 2019, we started calling it governance or management objective. So APO02 management strategy is a management objective, or you call it a process. Okay. So it will help you to provide a holistic view of the current business and INT environment. Okay. It will help you rethink internal operations as well as customer facing activities. And then it will help you define the future direction and the initiatives required to migrate to the desired future environment. Okay. The structured guidance that is available for this management objective will also ensure that the desired level of digitization is integral to the future direction and the INT strategy. So there are 6 key management practices defined under this management objective, which are listed on the screen now, from APO 2.1 to APO 2.6. Sorry, 6 management practices. So you need to establish these practices, and these practices will help you align strategically with the business, or the outcome will be proper IT strategy. Okay. Then we move on to the next element, which is control IT investments. IT investment should be controlled in line with the IT strategic plan, since we have established the IT strategic plan in the first step. Okay. So now we have a we have a clarity, like where we are, where we want to be, what are the gaps and what are the constraints, and how do we basically fill those gaps, what are the investment opportunities, and how do we basically support achievement of our objectives. So now it's time to basically control the investment. So manage the portfolio of IT investments. Okay. And it will ensure that it contains program that had solid business case. And since we already have IT strategy in place, it becomes easier. Like business cases will not be approved or developed on ad hoc basis. Okay. So now whoever is developing a business case from technology investment perspective, they need to basically map it to the IT strategy. Like in IT strategy, we have agreed these elements to support this aspect. This is the business case that we are proposing. Okay, it becomes easy because the business case will not be evaluated in a silo. It will be evaluated in the context of the IT strategy that has been already defined. Okay. So Then you will have to basically define in your business case like desired business outcomes, like stakeholders impacted, who will be the stakeholders who will be impacted in this, and clarify how program objectives support achievement of outcomes, and articulate potential alternatives and risks, and provide the full scope of efforts required to achieve the outcome. So this is how your business case will look like when you have IT strategy in place and you are basically evaluating or preparing your business case based on the IT strategy. Then you need to establish a fair, transparent, and repeatable and comparable process for evaluation of business cases. Okay. You need to categorize portfolio based on alignment, cost, and degree of risk. Then prioritize the allocation of IT resources to maximize the return on investments, and establish a process to engage stakeholders in effective and efficient IT investment decisions. Okay. Now, looking at the COVID guidance that we have available from Control IT Investments perspective, the closest match is basically APO 05 Manage Portfolio. So this governance or management objective or the
Amir,
cost.
I have a question from one of the public.
Yeah.
And this person is not having a good working microphone, so I will read it out. Uh-huh.
Sure.
How does the business value of IT relate to a re-evaluation of software used in or by a company, which obviously comprises more than purchase value? Think of business value creation, net present value, etc. And how then to present the value of these intangible assets in a financial statement?
Okay. So it's a very good question, and the basic thing or the basic problem that I have seen in justifying the value of these kind of initiative, this kind of investments, which basically run through the economic life cycle, which has economic life cycle stages. Okay. The problem is that every time we develop a business case for such initiatives, we create those business cases from scratch. Like, for example, you have acquired an ERP system, for example, which usually runs for years. Now, at the initial stage, you developed a business case for acquisition of ERP solution. Okay. And then you acquired it and you have implemented it. Now, after 1 year or 2 year, when you want to basically, when you need operational cost to maintain that ERP, usually I have seen that organizations basically develop a new business case for the investment in the maintenance, for the maintenance of ERP solution. This is the wrong practice. Actually, the same business case that you have, because it is creating a disconnect. Why you have acquired the ERP solution? What were the circumstances at that stage? What you have agreed as a value at that stage? Okay. So if you keep on introducing or developing a new business cases year after year for the maintenance or upgrade or renewal of licenses or whatever it is, the operational cost of that maintaining that ERP solution, the disconnect will remain there. So the idea is like you should keep the same business case updated throughout the life cycle of this product. Okay, it is very important because it creates a continuity. It will give the stakeholders a clear view that okay, this is what we agreed at the initial stage. Those were our objectives at that time. Okay, what we have agreed at that time. Now, what is being asked for further investment because there may be an upgrade required, and how much it is it relevant still to achieve our business objectives. So if you basically use this approach, keep updating the same business case and keep informing the stakeholders like from where you have started and where you have reached, and to reach to the desired state. Okay, how much further investment will be required, that will give you a better visibility, and that will improve you in justification of the value that you are delivering through this ERP solution or any initiative.
Okay, I have also another question, and this is from Joop van der Linden. Maybe he can ask it himself. Joop, can you?
Yes, I wonder if you use depreciation time within for your investments within your business cases.
Actually, you see, like these are the financial terms, of course, when you acquire an asset, okay,
Yeah.
depreciation value is always there, but the thing is like it should not be treated in a similar manner as usually the finance department or accounts department treats other assets. Like for example, if you have purchased a car, of course there is a limit that you can maintain that car in a right working condition, and over a period of time it is basically depreciated over a period of time and write off from the books. But IT application do not perform, or IT assets usually, like for example, it may be true for the hardware assets. For example, if you have purchased any hardware devices, computers or laptops or devices kind of. But when
Yes.
it comes to application systems, you cannot maintain them, and you need to keep them upgraded. Like for example, the operating system will keep on evolving, the patches will come into uh, play, and there are so many things that keeps on enhancing over a period of time. So I believe it will not be appropriate to use the same formula or same approach to basically depreciate an application system as you depreciate the physical hardware assets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and I asked this question because we're now moving. Lots of companies are moving to the cloud,
Mhm.
and how is handled then? And of the controls, the IT investments are different when we are now moving to the cloud.
Actually, when it comes to basically from the investment point of view, actually this is the primary question that should be asked. Should the company go with the cloud-based environment or solution, or should they acquire? Because there are so many companies which have so many implications for so many
Yeah.
reasons, for which they cannot uh, go to cloud environment. Okay, there may be a privacy issue or sensitivity of the data that they are basically processing or whatever it is. But if you have made this decision that you are going with the cloud, that means you have made this decision that you will keep on investing in the operational cost. You will not be acquiring any physical hardware assets. So the capital investment will be low, but the operational budget that will be required to maintain this kind of services will be high. Okay. So
Okay.
this kind of decision should be basically part of the IT strategy. That's why I basically identified there at the initial stage. I started from the IT strategy that you need to identify where you are, what capabilities you have currently in place from IT perspective, to satisfy business objectives, what capabilities you need, okay, what are the gaps, now what are the options. So when you consider those options, you will have, like, you can go with the cloud environment, you can acquire the solution hardware physical as a physical premises on premises, or you can have a hybrid or whatever it is. So these investment options should be discussed and evaluated at that time. And once it is identified, then it will become easier for you to basically keep on maintaining it because you have made the decision at that stage. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So now, going back to the presentation slide. So when we talk about control IT investments, so these are basically the management practices, 5 management practices under this APO05 managed portfolio of investment. Okay, where you are to basically determine the availability and sources of funds, evaluate and select programs to fund, monitor, optimize, and report on investment portfolio performance, maintain portfolios, and manage benefits achievement. So these are the key management practices that will basically help you in managing portfolio of IT investments, or in other words, control IT investments in alignment with the strategy that we have developed at the earlier stage. Then we move on to the next stage, life cycle stage, I would say. Ensure project results. Based on the investment decisions, now you will be initiating different projects, okay, to fill those gaps or to acquire those capabilities. So the value of IT investment cannot be ensured by selecting and controlling the portfolio of IT-enabled investments only. Okay, it is necessary to control the individual projects as well, because you need to ensure the value and quality of project deliverables and maximize their contribution to IT-enabled investment program. Okay, then like a PMO office, or at least in a smaller organization, a documented project management methodology will help in ensuring success in projects. Okay. And if you have a documented project management methodology, or you have a PMO established in your organization, that will make sure that not every project manager is basically using their own individual practices, which may or may not work. So company, basically the organization, decides like what works for them. They document the project management methodology, and then everybody, like whoever the project manager is, should follow that project management methodology. In smaller organizations, it is easier to control because there are not so many project managers, or there are not so many projects running in parallel. But in a larger organizations, it becomes difficult. That is why they establish a PMO office, program or project management office, to basically control the project managers across the organization and ensure that the organization's methodology is being practiced properly. And when we talk about defining a project management methodology, we are talking about establishing a project governance structure proper. Okay, like defining the roles and responsibilities and accountabilities. For example, for program sponsor, project sponsor, steering committee, project office, project manager. So these all elements should be covered under the project governance structure. Then we need to ensure project risks are managed. So it will be like it will be possible if you have a documented methodology where you have like how the process documented, like how the project risk will be managed. Then resolving resource requirements and conflicts and ensuring stakeholder participation. So that's how basically we ensure that projects deliver value, deliver results, not only on project management perspective, but aligned with the initial investment decisions and the IT strategy as well. So now, from COVID perspective, we have managed project guidance available. This is management objective BAI11, manage project, which helps you manage all projects that are initiated within the enterprise in alignment with enterprise strategy and in a coordinated way based on the standard project management approach. And it will help you realize defined project outcomes and reduce risk of unexpected delays, cost, and value erosions by improving communications to an involvement of business and end users. And when we talk about project governance, actually the important or sometimes crucial decision is like during the project to decide to terminate the project. Like if you keep an eye on like why we have initiated this project, and if that why has been changed, like for example, if the stakeholder expectations or requirements have been changed, or our focus that we have defined in the portfolio of investments has been changed. So it is better to terminate the project in the middle, rather keep investing on the project till the end and then realize that the outcome that this project is delivering, the capability that this project is delivering is not required anymore. Okay. So that is why we see these kind of surprises at the end. Like from project management perspective, project was completed within budget, within time, delivered the scope. But the problem is the scope has defined some capabilities that you will introduce in the organization, and those capabilities are not required anymore. So now, after investing time, after investing money, if you are delivering something that is not required anymore, of course it will not it will be very difficult to justify like the value of this initiative or this project. So it's better to keep an eye on like why we have initiated this project throughout the project life cycle. And this usually applies to a larger projects, like for example, if the projects are running for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, like ERP implementations are usually Like for example, spread over uh, years or months. Okay, it cannot be achieved in less than 6 months time or less than a year's time. It is very difficult. So for large timeline projects, it is very critical that you keep an eye on changing business requirements and make this tough decision during the project. Like if it looks like that this project is not supporting the initial objectives, it's better to terminate that project. Then we move on to manage IT services. Okay. So now for the business, the successful delivery of IT project does not equate to the realization of promised benefits alone. Okay. So the value for the business lies in the resultant IT services delivered. Okay. And how they are effectively managed at levels that satisfy business requirements in alignment with the business strategy. So this is the time when you need to basically realize the benefit, okay? Or you need to make sure that the benefits are realized, because now the capabilities are there. The resultant IT services will be basically helping business achieve their uh, objectives, business objectives, okay? So, from service management perspective, these are the four key elements that should be considered, like manage services by identifying service requirements and agreeing on service levels. That is very important because usually I have seen like there is always a complaint from the business side that the services are not being delivered as per expectations. So that means there is a misunderstanding between the IT. Like IT is delivering the services at a different level and business is expecting a different level of service. Okay. So since the business is the user of those services, those expectations should be clearly defined, identified, documented, and agreed on. Like at what level the services will be available. Similarly, provide timely reports of accomplishments of service level to stakeholders. Okay, you need to provide the reports as well, like how you are accomplishing or achieving the level of stakeholder satisfaction. Then enable alignment between IT service and the related business requirements. Okay, these are the areas basically, and regularly review SLAs and ensure they are updated for any change in business requirements. Okay, so these are the four critical areas that should be considered from the service management perspective. And when we look at the guidance that is available from COVID 2019, we basically pick APO 09, manage service agreements, as our management objective, or you can call it process in COVID 5. Okay, it will help you align INT-enabled products and services and service levels with the enterprise needs and expectations. And with these key management practices, you will make sure that INT products, services, and service level meet current and future uh, enterprise needs as well. So there are five management practices defined under the management objective. List starting from APO 09.1 to APO 09.5, and it starts from identify INT services, what services you are offering, catalog INT enabled services. You need to document those services in a proper catalog, then define and prepare service agreements, monitor and report service levels, and review service agreements and contracts. Then we come to the last stage, like you need to report performance. There is an old axiom, like you cannot manage what you do not measure. So, like it's a very common question, like the fundamental question, like are we getting the benefits? This is the question that we started from. Like management is usually asking this question, and the business stakeholders need to understand the return on IT-enabled investments. Without measuring and reporting performance, and IT value proposition cannot be recognized. And uh, another aspect is like when we talk about return on investment, ROI, the ROI of IT investments cannot be evaluated or figured out or calculated as we do ROI on other investments in other areas. Okay, so basically you need to define or you need to adopt. There are so many ways or methods available to basically calculate the ROI of investments in IT initiatives, and you can adopt any of those ROI methodologies. But the thing is, like the ROI of IT investments cannot be evaluated or calculated in a similar manner that usually finance or accounts department basically calculate for other investments. Okay, you need to find out like which method works best for your context or your organization, and you need to adopt, and then you need to basically start calculating the ROI on investments in IT. So when we talk about performance management, you need to establish framework for measuring IT's contribution to the business. This is very important because it is not like the operational. The point is like in my experience, what I have seen that usually when we talk about reporting IT performance, the IT's operational performance dashboards are usually presented to the board, which does not make any sense to that audience. Okay, and it is very like very generic or very like I would say basic thing that you need to identify your audience information need. And whenever we talk about providing information to our audience, there are at least three different categories. Okay, like for example, the executive management or the board, which have very different information need. Then we have the departmental managers or process owners. Then we have the basically process owners at the end. Okay, so if we categorize the audience in these three categories, okay, in these three labels, they all have distinct information needs. So now if you have prepared a dashboard, operational dashboard for the process owner or the departmental manager, the same dashboard or so the same information that you are reporting, if you are reporting it as it is to the board, it will not make any sense. Okay, so you need to establish a framework like how you will transform these operational reports to the level where it is comprehensible for the audience that is sitting at the board. Okay, and I have given you that idea that you need to basically report your performance based on the objectives that we have agreed on at the very initial stage in the first step. Okay, and usually balance scorecard is used to basically report achievement of objectives or strategies. Okay, so you need to basically develop IT performance dashboard, or I would say balance scorecard, balance scorecard. Okay, to report to the board or the executive management when it comes to reporting the IT performance. So the COVID guidance that is available on performance management is basically MEA, monitor, evaluate, and assess, and 01, which is manage performance and conformance monitoring. Okay, and this governance or this management objective or the process basically helps you monitor the processes and practices performance against agreed performance and conformance goals and metrics, and provide reporting that is systematic and timely. The structured guidance available for this management objective will also help you provide transparency of performance and conformance and drive achievement of goals. There are 5 management practices defined under this objective, management objective. Starting from establish a monitoring approach to set performance and conformance targets, collect and process performance and conformance data, analyze and report performance, and then ensure the implementation of corrective actions if there are any deviations. So now we have identified 5 different areas starting from strategic alignment to monitoring and reporting, and I have shared with you 5 governance management objectives, or I would say processes, which will help you establish this lean governance solution focused on delivering value to the business. Under each governance or management objective, there are key practices that I have been introduced, like I have been pointing out, like there are sometimes 3, 4, or 5 under each governance or management objective. Okay. So now, under the key management practices, there are activities. Okay. And there are a number of activities that will help you to establish this particular practice. For example, if we talk about APO 02.04, conduct a gap analysis. To conduct gap analysis, COVID has given you some list of activities that these 5 list activities should be performed to conduct a gap analysis. Okay. And you may also note, if you refer to the COVID framework booklet itself, okay, the framework itself, you may note that the capability levels are marked for each activity. For example, the first 3 activities under APO 02.04 conduct a gap analysis. The first 3 activities are marked for capability level 3. Okay, and the next 2 activities are basically marked for capability level 4. So now, which capability level should you target? So at the initial stage, I advise you to select activities marked for capability level 3 at least. There are certain management practices where capability level 2 is also marked. Okay, but at least you should target to achieve capability level 3 because it relates to a managed process. Okay, this is our objective. And you can leave the activities which are marked for capability level 4 at the initial stage. And once you are done with establishing your initial scope of governance and management system, okay, successfully, you may plan to improve the capability and maturity of the process as part of continual improvement cycle. Okay. Then we also have metrics available. Okay, under each management practice, key practice, the example metrics are also defined, like how would you measure the performance against conduct a gap analysis. COVID has given you some example metrics, like for example, for this particular management practice, these are the 2 metrics, like number of high impact changes required in the different enterprise architecture domains, or number of significant gaps between current environment and good practices. So you can use these matrices as it is at the initial stage. You can tailor them to suit your environment. Okay, but at least you have a starting point. So we have seen 5 management practices, governance objectives, under which there are number of key management practices, and for each management practices we have activities marked for different capability levels. So my advice is to select at least capability level 3, do not target level 4 or 5 at the initial stage. And then to measure the performance, use these metrics which are defined under key management practices. Okay, and since COVID's performance management system is mapped already to balance scorecard domains, so it will become easier for you to basically map these or prepare IT balance scorecard using these metrics and report it to the board or the executive management. And remember that the drills provided in COVID framework, like practices and activities, define what is required to achieve the governance or management objective. Okay, it is not like, though they are calling it activities, but it is not the process itself. Okay, it is not giving you the details of how it should be implemented. So still, though they are calling it activities, it is basically defining what is required to achieve governance or management objective. The how element is not defined in COVID framework. It is up to you to use whatever practices that are available. Like for example, for project management, PMI methodology is available. So when you look into the activities under the manage project process or governance or management objective, those activities are not basically giving you how element. They are defining the what for project management. And if you want to refer to the how element, if you need a guidance on how project management should be established, you need to refer to the relevant standard, the framework that are available. Okay.
And I'm also timekeeper, of course.
Sure.
Yeah. I know we are close to the end, but do we also have some time also left for questions?
Yes, I'm just closing. It is the almost second last slide, and
Okay.
yeah, we will still have 4 or 5 minutes available. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. So now that we have selected relevant activities and metrics for APO 02 manage strategy targeting capability level 3 at this level at the top. Okay. So there are other four like management practices defined under APO 02. So you need to repeat the selection process for remaining 5 practices that we have under APO 02 manage strategy. Okay. And that's how you will basically customize APO 02 manage strategy for tailored governance system. Okay. And then repeat this step for rest of the management objective that you have selected in your scope. For example, APO 05 manage portfolio, BAI 11 manage project, APO 09 manage service agreements, and MEA 01 manage performance and conformance. Okay. So that's how basically you define the scope of your governance solution using these 5 uh, management objectives or processes from COVID 2019 framework. Then to make it work, you need to establish a good governance as well. And what do we mean by establishing a good governance of IT? Like you need to establish governance structure like IT investment committee or IT steering committee, or you can name it anyway. Like it is not the name or the label is not important. What important is establishing a governance structure to overlook all these activities. Then allocate responsibility, authority, and accountability in line with decision making model. So when we talk about allocate responsibility, do not assume that you have included CEO of the organization into the steering committee. The responsibilities will be well like understood. No, you need to document like what are the responsibilities that you are allocating to the investment committee, how the decisions will be made, like all those things. Like usually I call it a charter for this committee. So you need to document a charter for this committee, covering each and every aspect, like how this committee will be operating. Then you need to define information required for informed decision making. Like if you are asking that particular governance structure or governance investment committee to make decisions, you need to define like what information will be required and how you will provide that information to the steering committee. And we have touched upon this aspect, like the 5 processes or governance and management objective that we have selected in our scope will help you identify the information that is required to make informed decision related to business value of IT, ensuring business value of IT. Okay. And then you need to enforce compliance with ethical and professional behaviors. So that's how basically you establish a good governance over IT. And when you implement that governance system that we have just identified as a scope, it will basically ensure that you deliver value to the business. And the more important is it is not that you are not delivering value to the business at the moment. The thing is the value will be benefits will be realized. Okay. So this brings us to the end of our discussion today. And if you have been waiting to ask questions at the end, it's your time now. You can ask your questions.
Yeah, there is, I think, a raised hand. I have to look where it is. Erik Poortman has a question. Erik, can you unmute?
Yes, I can. Yes. Thank you, Amir, for your solid presentation. It's very good. My experience is in the practice that a project starts and a few months later the scoping is changing, and mostly the scoping is less because the targets were too high at the start. And then when I see to your approach, I think your approach is very dynamic, and every time you have to change it, is the scoping is changing from the project, what it means.
Yeah.
And that you have the relation between your approach and the scoping of the project, and that is I must say stay in balance. And I think that's hard working. I think so. What's your experience with that? Can you tell more about that?
Yeah, actually, there basically the problem that you have identified, like the change of a scope of the project or scope creep, has multi facets. Actually, sometimes you see, like it also depends on the culture in the organization. Like sometimes the people who are initiating the project keep it in that manner, that because it is difficult to acquire a large funding or to get approval on huge funding for a large scope project, so they deliberately try to keep the scope limited and then introduce changes. So that is what I have seen. And sometimes it is that the people who are initiating the project or defining the initial scope of the project, they do not have the clarity or the visibility, like how this project is going to support business achieve its business objectives. And the moment business executives or business people, or you can say the stakeholders, start involving into the what you can say products testing or approvals, then they start providing input, and that's why we see scope creep in most of the projects. So there are so many aspects, and the more important thing is, like, it is most of the times very difficult. Like it becomes a like a matter of an ego, like how can you terminate a project which is running. Okay, so that courage is required, and that can only be achieved if all these components are interlinked together. If your projects are linked with your IT strategy, and if there is a change in strategy, the steering committee or the investment committee should evaluate whether the running projects are still viable, or there is a need to terminate those projects in the middle, or would it be feasible to modify the scope of the project and keep continuing with the modified scope and achieve the objective. So these, like, if the stakeholders at the right level are engaged at the right time, then you will basically have the less resistance and like friction throughout the process. Otherwise it becomes very difficult.
Thank you for your answer. Sorry. Thank you for your answer.
Other questions? I see a lot of thank yous in the chat box, Amir. So everybody is very happy for a solid presentation. And
Okay, great.
I see from different areas in the world, even a hello from Malaysia. So we have fans all over the world. Then from time frame thinking, if there are no other questions, I think we should close this meeting. Thanks very, very much. We are very grateful. And everybody will get a copy of the slides, and also the recording will be available. Thank you very much, and have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.